What's up, Exiles? It's Hegemony, and I have another build I want to share with you guys before the Prophecy League launches. And while you're staring at this character, you might see some familiar resemblance of the Diablo 3 Witch Doctor. Well, this is my version of Path of Exile's Witch Doctor. Using the Necromancer Ascendancy, along with the power of the Null's Inclination bow, we're able to make a very strong attack-based witch. And it's important to note that this used to be my level 100 Witch Wander, but for the sake of science, I withheld using 6 points, and by doing this, this will simulate a level 94 character. I'm going to preface this in saying that there's a lot of things going on with this character, so if you missed anything, feel free to check the view thread, pause, or rewind the video. The TLDR version of this build is I use a bow which shoots an arrow, and that arrow then triggers any minion skill that's linked into the bow. So let's take a look at the chest piece, because that's where I have my skill shot set up. Split arrow, it's level 21. Getting a level 21 is kind of important because it grants an additional arrow. Split arrow is a great choice because it doesn't need multiple projectile support gems to help it do damage. Instead, we used the Pierce support gem, which recently got buffed, and the Pierce on the right side of the tree above acrobatics. Piercing shots gives you 30%, the nodes preceding it give you 5, 5, and 10. So that's a total of 100% pierce. And now we take that pierce chance and utilize it with Drill Neck. Projectile damage increased by arrow pierce chance. Now this is 100% increased projectile damage, which double dips with poison. And that leads me to the next support gem. We're using the poison support gem because that scales off of physical and chaos damage. And it just so happens that's how Null's Inclination Ranger Bow is itemized. It's itemized with physical damage and chaos. And in this case, 77 to 172. So it makes sense to use support gems like Poison, which allows me to poison on hit and it gives me increased damage over time. And then we use added chaos damage, which just gives you straight up flat chaos damage to your attacks. With Void Manipulation, now this is a more multiplier, 39% more chaos damage. That'll help the upfront hit and the degen. So the quality on this gives you increased chaos damage, that's also great. The reduced elemental damage we don't really care about. We are running Wrath, but our elemental damage is insignificant in this case. And then the Pierce coming with the more multiplier is also great. And the last support to talk about on Split Arrow is Culling Strike. This ensures that we get the kills ourselves because that's important for Null's Inclination to proc all the minion gems. Now it's only 110% mana multiplier, which is very cheap, but it comes with 38% increased global damage. This will increase the upfront hit and the degen. Comes with great attack speed, and essentially if you hit a mob from 50% to what would be 10%, you would just kill it outright and get 10% extra damage. And it's worth noting that the Culling Strike effect will not go off from degen damage. That means if a mob is poisoned from 13 and starts to degen, it'll go 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, etc, etc. Culling Strike is just a consistency support gem. You shouldn't be concerned about getting kills. I guarantee you're going to get them. If I were going to pull out a support gem for a 5 link, it would probably be Added Chaos. You need the Pierce, you need Culling Strike, and you need Poison. Rapid Decay is not a viable choice for this build because Rapid Decay only affects duration based skills and Split Arrow is not duration based. So let's take a look at what's in the bow. What are we actually proccing and why did we choose it? So the two minions that are in the bow are Animate Weapon and Summon Raging Spirit. I highly recommend that you get quality on your Raging Spirits because it increases its minion movement speed, and that's very important. Animate Weapon is one of those gimmicky type skills as it animates weapons that are identified on the ground. That means any white weapon, including the 6 sockets and all that jazz, will become your minion. But it's not too bad. You'll still be able to get 6 socket blues, rares, and uniques. And keep in mind that this only goes off when you score kills, so there's still a small chance you can pick up a white 6 socket. And looking at the rest of the support gems, we have minion damage. That's a more multiplier for my minions. We have minion speed. This gives them attack, cast, and movement speed. They won't be casting anything, but I feel like this is necessary to make them relevant in combat. And then we have Flesh Offering, which is another skill. You get to choose one offering, and this is interchangeable depending upon map mods. Flesh Offering gives movement speed and attack speed, which is essential to this build. And the last support gem we have is Increased Duration. So now we can enhance Summon Raging Spirits, Animate Weapon, and Flesh Offering. And now that we've talked about the payload of the attack and what it will proc, let's talk about how the Ascendancy affects this character choice. So we have Mistress of Sacrifice, which in my opinion is the #1 reason to go Necromancer as a Nulls build. We get 20% increased skill effect duration, which is great because it enhances everything. And then we get your offering skills also affect you. This is amazing because now Flesh Offering affects me, which will grant me movement speed, attack speed, and cast speed. If the map looks pretty tough, I'll usually swap Flesh Offering with Bone Offering so that I can get 35% attack block and 34% spell block. This will also be granted to my minions. In addition, whenever my minions or my character blocks, it grants 594 healing, which is very nice. The small node before Mistress of Sacrifice gives you 10% skill effect duration and 15% minion damage, which is great. Moving along, I picked up Commander of Darkness. This gives you increased attack and cast speed and damage per aura you cast. And in this case, I'm using 2 auras, so I get 4% attack and cast speed and 12% increased damage to me and my allies. The node before that gives you 4% cast speed and minion damage. There aren't many things that I cast except for Vaal Haste and a manual Animate Weapon if I feel like it. And cast speed will enhance the rate at which Wither is applied by the spell totem. So cast speed is not a complete waste. It is worth noting that Spirit Eater is preferred overall, however it's unusable because it starts to make your client freeze. Whenever that is fixed, I will definitely be picking up Spirit Eater. And the last pairing of nodes are Minion Damage and Chaos Resistance, that's self-explanatory, followed by Beacon of Corruption. 20% increased chaos damage, that double dips with the upfront hit and the poison. And we have 15% chaos resist, that's great. Minions have chaos res. And your minions spread Caustic Cloud on death, dealing 10% of their maximum life as chaos damage per second. This effect will trigger off of my Golem, Summon Raging Spirit, and Animate Weapon. And what's also cool is whenever Animate Weapon or Raging Spirits expire, that counts as a death, which will drop Chaos Clouds. So it's chaos everywhere. And let's talk about our third and final minion, which is the Summon Lightning Golem, which is relatively new to Path of Exile. It grants my character 9% increased attack and cast speed. In addition, it drops orbs of lightning that zap nearby enemies on the battlefield, and casts a temporary aura that grants added lightning damage to the golem and its nearby enemies. This is an insane choice for this character as it enhances everything about the build. Looking into the future with the Ascendancy tree and the upcoming Prophecy League, we know that we're going to get access to 2 more Ascendancy points. Otherwise, my choice is to pick up minion damage, life, and cast speed. And I don't really feel like Fleshbinder is a great option as we don't have many minion nodes to scale the zombies. We don't have any additional zombies, and summoning zombies on your own is kind of clunky. So let's cross our fingers and hope Spirit Eater is fixed. Let's move on to the rares and the other gems that I use on this character. Haste and Wrath are the 2 choices. Wrath because it adds flat lightning damage to me and my minions. Note that it's reduced by 25% because I am using Void Manipulation. However, the minions make good use of the Wrath. Haste is movement speed and attack speed and cast speed for me and my allies, so that seems like an obvious choice. Now with both of those auras, that's 100% reservation, and we're still able to use our attack without using Enlighten. And that's because we pick up Charisma. It's 8% reduced here, 4% reduced there, increased radius of aura skills. Now that's pretty irrelevant for any solo player. However, when you have minions or your minion based build, radius is very, very important so it reaches to your minions far away. In addition, we have Leadership, which gives you 30% increased radius of aura skills, and then 6% increased effect, along with 4% reduced and 6% increased over here. And while we're here, let's take a look at this jewel, Spirit Guards. It's a unique jewel, it's very cheap. It says minions deal 12% increased damage. And while we're here, let's take a look at this Spirit Guards Viridian Jewel. This is a unique jewel that's very cheap. It says with 50 dex allocated in radius, animate weapons can animate up to 4 ranged weapons. And that's important because implicitly, animate weapons doesn't animate bows and wands. But this allows you to get 4 more units of an off weapon. You don't have to use this jewel, you can use a rare one instead. This just gives you a more massive army. Here's an example of a rare jewel that I picked up. Attack speed, chaos resistance, and projectile damage. Projectile damage double dips, and the other things are just great. Alright, what else is in our arsenal? We have a spell totem with Wither, and what this does is it summons a totem that chain casts Wither, which debuffs a mob. And I usually don't need to do this at all. I rarely, if ever, use it. But just in case I don't have any minions on the battlefield and I need a little bit of extra help because of the shitty map mods. And because I built this character to focus a bit more on my damage than minion damage, it has no problems killing bosses on its own in high red maps with shitty map mods. I ran a T13 excavation map with Enfeeble and more monster life with added fire damage and multiple projectiles and one other mod, and I did it just fine without any minions. And it's because I use Pierce with stacking poison and split arrow that allows me to do that. In my gloves I have one of my favorite defensive setups, which is cast when damage taken level 1, Arctic Breath level 4, and greater multiple projectiles, doesn't matter what level it is or what quality it is. This allows me to spray out chilled ground in the direction I was hit in efforts to slow down the enemy attacks. And in my boots I have Rallying Cry level 14 because I don't have enough strength, Blink Arrow, Vaal Haste, and Increased Duration. Increased Duration enhances all of these skills, but it doesn't really affect Blink Arrow that much because it just extends the duration that the Blink Arrow stays out. Rallying Cry is a great choice for this character because it gives me mana regen and it increases my damage based off of how many enemies are nearby. But the kicker is that it affects me and my allies. So if you use this war cry right before you're about to kill 50 mobs, you and your allies will be buffed for a period of time. Another unique I'm using is a series step, as it gives you great movement speed, evasion, dodge, and spell dodge. Can't really complain. They're pretty easy to get and they're just all around great for hardcore. For gloves I have accuracy, life, resist, and dual leech. Leech is important because this is how I sustain outside of Rallying Cry. I do enough physical damage that I could just spam split arrow at a target as long as I'm hitting it. And if you don't get leech from gloves, you can always get it from jewels, rings, or amulets. In the helmet, I just have life, resist, and int. You need quite a bit of int to be able to equip Null's Inclination. It requires 212. You'll notice that the helmet is not 4-linked, and that's on purpose, and that's because Spell Totem linked with an aura will actually cast the aura on the totem. This is bad. And for amulet and ring choices other than life and resist, you want open prefixes so that you can go to the Elrion crafter and craft flat chaos on your rings and amulets. Flat physical isn't bad because physical will scale with projectile and it also helps with poison, but it's not your first pick. And with the belt, I chose to go with life resist and increased flash charges gained. I would also take reduced flash charges used, but this goes hand in hand with my favorite combo, the Restless Ward and the Dodri's Elixir. Dun dun dun! And with the expansion and more ways to generate power and frenzy charges, I felt like the Dodri's Elixir wasn't as necessary, but in this case, it is quite necessary because I don't have all the gem real estate that I would on a different character. I don't have room for Assassin's Mark or Poachers, and I don't want to run Blood Rage or use Blood Dance. So generating all my charges with the Dodri's Elixir and then having all my charges last 20 seconds or more really put my damage and defense where it needs to be in red maps in the end game. I have to say this is one of my favorite characters when playing around with ascendancies and power levels. I feel like the Witch Doctor is not only thematic with how the character looks, but the way it plays, as it deals poison, chaos, and it has a bunch of minions. If you guys enjoyed this video and would like to see more, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm Hegemony, and I'll see you guys later.